You know how, like, everyone kind of wishes there was just a shortcut to learning a new language?
Yeah,
Download Fluency straight into your brain.
a magic pill.
Yeah. Today's deep dive is about as close as we're going to get.
Oh, fun.
We're tackling Fluent Forever by Gabriel Wyner,
Right.
a book that promises like a brain-friendly approach to learning any language.
It's really cool, actually, because he focuses on how our brains are already wired for learning.
So what's the big secret? What are the cheat codes for Fluent Forever?
So one of the biggest things for me was that we don't need to force feed information.
Okay.
Instead, we need to make it important so our brain can't ignore it.
Okay.
You ever see the back of a chocolate milk carton, like the nutrition information?
Yeah.
Remember it?
Not at all.
Our brains filter out information that's not important.
Yeah, who cares about the chemical breakdown of chocolate milk?
Yeah.
Just tell me how good it tastes.
Exactly. So how do we make conjugations in Spanish feel as important as knowing where the nearest coffee shop is?
Oh, that's the question.
Use visuals. Turns out our brains are amazing at remembering images. Wyner, he talks about a study where people could remember 83% of 10,000 images they saw.
Wow.
And that was over 5 days. That's way better than staring at a list of words.
Okay.
So instead of saying gato for cat, you should picture your cat Mittens chasing a laser pointer.
Yeah.
See? That's the levels of processing. Just seeing the letters is weak, hearing is better, but attaching a vivid image,
Yeah.
especially an image connected to you, that's where the magic happens. The stronger the connection, the better you'll remember.
That makes a lot of sense, but it still takes work, right?
It does, but Wyner has this great quote. He says, "Why take the chance? Hard work could kill you."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, he's all about working smarter, not harder,
Ooh, yes.
which I think is a good philosophy. Spaced repetition is a big one, where you're strategically forgetting and relearning to cement things in your long-term memory.
So instead of cramming, I'm spacing out my sessions.
Yeah, so you learn a new word, you almost forget it, but then you review it right before it completely fades. And then you space out your review even further.
Gotcha.
So like giving your brain a little workout. It's like training your memory muscles.
So I could theoretically remember something years later just with a few reviews.
Exactly. So it takes advantage of how our brains are already wired to make learning more efficient.
Ooh, that's so cool.
Less tedious, more effective.
What about pronunciation? That's always been like the hardest thing for me.
Wyner has you covered. Have you heard that joke about the German Coast Guard? They ask a sinking ship, "What are you thinking about?"
Yeah, classic. Shows
Yeah.
how those little differences matter.
And like, we're all born able to hear hundreds of sounds, but then we kind of specialize as babies
Oh.
into the sounds of our own language.
So it's not that we can't hear them anymore. We just kind of forgot how to.
Exactly. We need to retrain our ears. And that's where minimal pairs training comes in. So you're practicing distinguishing very similar sounds, like the LR difference. That's tough for Japanese speakers learning English.
Yeah.
It's almost like rewiring your brain.
Wow. So we can rewire our brains as adults.
Yeah, studies show we can learn how to hear new sounds with enough practice, which is important for accents too. Like getting those down early makes everything so much easier later on.
And what about really intimidating words? Like in Russian, the word vzdragnu, it means to flinch. And it's like vzdragnu.
There's this cool trick called back chaining.
Okay.
Instead of trying to say the whole word, you start with just the last sound, nu, and then nu.
That's really cool.
And then you build your way up to the whole word.
Oh, okay.
It kind of breaks it down into manageable pieces.
Yeah, that takes away the fear factor a little bit. What about vocabulary? Memorizing lists has always been so boring for me.
Wyner throws out the list. He uses this metaphor of building an island. Every word is a stone.
Okay.
And as you learn, your island rises up out of the lake.
I love that.
Everyone's island's a little different. You're learning words that are relevant to you.
Yeah.
Wyner does suggest a core of 625 really common words.
Okay.
But then how do you make them stick? He says Google image is your friend.
Oh.
Find a picture that connects with the word, even if it's weird or funny.
So I shouldn't just like take the first picture of a cat. I should find a picture of a cat doing something ridiculous.
Exactly. He calls it the memory game. For example, if you look up the Russian word for girl, you'll find a very specific theme in the images that pop up.
Oh, now I need to know. Is it cat related?
Let's just say it's not what you'd expect, but a good example of how using those unexpected images can help create a connection.
So I'm learning a word and getting a little cultural insight at the same time. 2 birds, 1 Google search.
Exactly. And it works for grammar, too. Like in German, the word for tree is masculine.
Okay.
Instead of remembering a dry rule, picture a tree flexing its biceps.
Oh my God. I would remember that.
It's funny and memorable. It's about making things concrete, engaging.
Okay, I'm feeling good. We've got pronunciation. We've got vocabulary down. What about actually, like, speaking in sentences?
So now we're getting into sentence play.
Okay.
Wyner says, first you learn the instrument, then the music, then you forget all that stuff and you just play.
Oh, I like that.
It starts with comprehensible input.
Okay.
Basically, being exposed to language that you can mostly understand, even if you don't get every single word.
Okay.
Babies don't start with perfect grammar.
They pick it up along the way?
Yeah, they absorb the sounds, and research shows that we acquire grammar in stages, just like kids.
Oh, interesting.
You can't skip ahead, but the right input fuels the process, so you don't have to be a grammar whiz from day one.
Oh, thank goodness.
Wyner recommends a game called Taboo.
Like the board game.
Yeah, you have to describe something without using certain words.
Yeah.
Here, you're trying to communicate without direct translations.
Okay.
So instead of saying, I want a coffee, you might say, I need that brown hot drink that wakes me up.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, it forces you to use the vocabulary you've got. It builds fluency.
Okay, cool. What's another example?
Okay, imagine you're at a restaurant. You want to order a steak, but you don't know the word for steak.
Okay.
So you say, I want that big piece of meat, cooked on fire, a little bit pink on the inside.
I love this.
So it's like a little game.
So even with a limited vocabulary, I can still communicate.
Yeah. It's about being playful. But let's be real, motivation can be tough.
Yeah. I've started so many language courses, and I'm just like, I don't do it anymore.
He emphasizes the power of habits
Okay.
because they run on autopilot.
Habits. I thought we were talking about languages.
Well, think about it. You already have habits, like brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
He suggests attaching your language practice to an existing habit.
So like every time I brush my teeth, I review 5 flashcards.
Exactly.
Okay.
And keep it short. Don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah.
Those little wins build momentum.
5 flashcards feels much better than a whole hour of studying. Okay, so we talked about how to make words stick, retraining our ears, playing games to build fluency,
Yeah.
and tuning it all into a habit. What's next?
There's so much more to unpack in this book.
Okay.
But let's dive into some more advanced techniques that can accelerate our learning.
I'm ready to level up.
All right. So we're building momentum. We've got the memory tricks down. The pronunciation's getting sharper. You're even starting to think in the new language a bit.
It's amazing, yeah. It really makes a difference.
Yeah.
I am a little curious about minimizing interference, though. Not quite sure what Wyner means.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's about setting yourself up for success
Okay.
in the long run. So picture this. You walk into a huge party, and you're trying to learn everyone's names all at once.
Oh, it sounds terrible.
It's overwhelming, right? You'd probably get everyone mixed up.
For sure, and then I'd forget half the names by the time I was on my second drink.
Exactly. That's interference.
Okay.
It's when similar memories are competing with each other.
Oh. Makes it harder to learn. So in language learning, this can happen when you try to learn too many similar words all at once.
So, like, if I tried to learn all the colors in Spanish at the same time, my brain would just be like, what?
Exactly. Instead of creating these nice, distinct memories for rojo, azul, and amarillo, they all kind of blur together.
Gotcha.
Like identical twin cousins. How do you tell them apart?
Yeah, makes sense. So spreading things out, mixing up the vocabulary is better.
Yeah. And this actually goes for learning multiple languages at the same time, too. Wyner's not a fan
of
that approach.
I've heard of people who've done it successfully, though.
It's possible, but it definitely raises the chances of interference.
Oh, okay.
Like juggling 2 sets of bowling pins.
Yeah.
You might keep it up for a while, but eventually
Things are going to crash.
it's going to get messy.
Makes sense to focus on one thing and build that foundation.
Yeah, quality over quantity. And speaking of quality,
Oh.
Wyner's a big advocate for using monolingual dictionaries. Monolingual. Those sound really intense, like I'm just stringing together sentences here.
They can be intimidating, I get it,
Yeah.
but they're an amazing tool for deep learning. Because instead of just getting a quick translation, you have to engage with the language to figure out the definition.
Yeah.
It's like having a tutor built in.
I see what you mean. Well, I just get lost, though.
Yeah, you'll come across some words you don't know, but that's where those context clues come in.
Okay.
You know, you can usually figure it out from the words around it, the sentence.
I like it.
It's like a little detective game.
Yeah.
So the more you do it, the better you get at deciphering.
Okay, I'm convinced. Monolingual dictionaries it is.
Hmm?
What about actually using the language?
Yeah.
Reading and listening, those seem like obvious places to start.
They are, and Wyner has some really helpful advice. He brings up something called the Yerkes-Dodson law.
Oh, that rings a bell.
It basically says there's an optimal level of stress for learning.
So if I'm too relaxed, I'll be bored.
Mm.
And if I'm too stressed, I'll just shut down.
Exactly. It's finding that sweet spot where you're challenged but not discouraged. And you can adjust your materials to hit that sweet spot.
So I probably shouldn't be jumping into reading like Don Quixote in Spanish right away.
Probably not. Start with stuff that's a little bit above your level, but not so hard that you're constantly lost.
Gotcha, like a Goldilocks situation.
Not too hard, not too easy.
Okay, makes sense. This makes me think about subtitles, because I rely on those so much. But is that like a crutch?
They can be helpful at first, but yeah, they can prevent you from fully engaging with the audio.
Oh, okay.
Because you're just reading the whole time, not training your ear
to
pick up on those nuances.
So maybe start with subtitles and then kind of wean myself off.
Yeah, try rewatching a scene without subtitles and see how much you can pick up.
Like a little test.
Exactly.
I like it. What about reading?
Wyner says choose books that you enjoy, even if they're not like high literature.
So trashy romance novels are okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
The goal is to read as much as possible.
Yeah.
And you're more likely to stick with it if you like it.
That takes the pressure off. It doesn't have to be War and Peace in Italian.
Yeah.
What about listening resources?
Podcasts are great.
Yeah.
Especially those designed for language learners. They tend to have that clear, slower speech.
I've heard of those slow news podcasts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're perfect. Great way to build those skills.
I like it. Okay. I'm feeling much more equipped to handle the reading and listening.
Yeah.
But speaking, that's the ultimate challenge.
It is, yeah.
Like, how do we break through that barrier?
Well, Wyner has some really interesting perspectives on that.
Okay, I'm ready.
Let's unlock the joy of speaking.
Speaking, it's like the final boss of language learning.
It really is, yeah. Wyner talks about how speaking a new language can feel like we're standing naked on a stage, like,
So true. You feel so exposed.
all your defenses are down.
Yeah, like in our native language, we can be clever, we can be funny. But in a new language, it's like we're back to being toddlers.
Totally.
Just like fumbling for words.
You're making mistakes.
Yeah, it can be so discouraging.
It is. Wyner has a really interesting take on this.
Okay.
He says, we should look at those mistakes.
Yeah.
Not as failures, but as like a necessary part of the process.
So instead of cringing when I mess up,
Yeah.
I should be like, okay, I'm learning.
Exactly. Letting go of that perfectionism
Yeah.
and allowing yourself to be a beginner.
Makes me think of that idea of common humanity.
Oh, yeah.
We all feel awkward.
We've all been there.
Everyone who learned a new language has had those moments of like, oh God, I sound so stupid.
Oh, absolutely.
It's comforting to know I'm not alone.
You're not alone at all.
But how do we get to that point where we feel comfortable speaking?
So Wyner tells this story about learning Portuguese in Brazil.
Okay.
He was feeling really frustrated, trying to talk to people.
Yeah.
And then he saw this little kid
Oh.
who barely spoke any Portuguese, but interacting with people with such confidence and joy.
It's amazing how kids just have that natural ability.
They do.
They don't care if they make mistakes.
Not at all. They just dive in.
Wyner had like an aha moment.
He did. He realized this kid's fluency wasn't about perfect grammar or a huge vocabulary.
Yeah.
It was his willingness to just speak, to engage,
Yeah.
to find the joy in it, even if he was making mistakes.
He was connecting with people.
He was.
That's beautiful. What if instead of trying to be perfect,
Yeah.
we just embraced being playful?
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to make mistakes.
Absolutely. And could that help unlock fluency?
Wow.
More joy in the process.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
What if making mistakes is the key to becoming fluent?
Right. It sounds counterintuitive, but I think there's something to that.
Yeah.
When we've let go of the need to be perfect, we open ourselves up to these moments of connection and laughter and understanding.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that shift in perspective could make a big difference.
Yeah, it really can. And you have all those tools from the book, you know, the memory techniques, the spaced repetition, taboo.
Yeah.
It's a whole toolkit.
I feel like I can do this.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to keep going.
I am too.
And maybe one day I'll be telling stories of my own awkward but fun conversations in a new language.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening, check out the show notes.
Yes.
We've got links to all the resources we talked about.
Yeah.
Wyner's website, the 625 word list to get your vocabulary island started.
Love it.
Happy learning, everyone.